Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to cover some of the basics needed to get up and running with Python. Don't worry, you don't need to know any prior knowledge of Python or programming. All you need is to have Python installed on your machine and a good text editor. For me, I'm currently using VS Code. If you should need either of these, please check out my links in the description. But first, please hit that thumbs up button and make sure you're subscribed. Now let's get into it. Today I'm actually going to use what's called a Jupyter Notebook. I find these incredibly useful for both learning Python as well as doing data analysis in Python. Jupyter Notebooks help break up your Python code into smaller chunks where you can execute and evaluate the code. This is especially useful when starting out, as it will help you narrow down where errors are occurring in your code. To get started using a notebook, in VS Code, hold Ctrl-Shift-P to open up the command palette and start to type Jupyter Notebook, create notebook. This will open up a new file where you will see a blank cell. In this cell is where you can type your Python code and execute it. We can add other cells to help break up our Python code. Let's start with the first cell and go over some basic math skills. Python can do a lot, but at very least it's a simple calculator. I think everyone would be familiar with some basic math operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, but there are two additional math operations that I think we will cover as well. Let's start by typing 5 plus 10 and hit Ctrl-Enter. You should see the number 15 below the cell. Next, let's change the formula in the cell and do 10 minus 5 and hit Ctrl-Enter. Again, you should see the number 5. Feel free to test out the multiplication and division signs as well. Next, let's look at two other functions such as exponents and modules. If you're coming from Excel or another programming language like I was, you might be used to using the up arrow or caret to do exponents like 2 squared or 3 to the 4th. In Python, exponents are expressed by using the star star, so if you want to do something like 6 raised to the 3rd, it would be 6 star star 3. Additionally, there is an operator that will help you calculate the modulo. This will return the remainder of two numbers divided by each other. So say you had the number 7 and you wanted to divide by 3 and you wanted to know what the remainder was. You would simply do 7 %, 3. This will give you the result of 1, since the number 3 can go into 7 twice to get 6, so the remainder left would be 1. Now let's add a new cell by clicking the plus sign in the menu bar above the notebook. This will add a new cell just below the current cell. In this cell, we'll cover a few things. We'll learn how to assign a variable, how to tell what type of that variable is, and how to use a print statement with what's called an F string. Let's first start by creating a variable, and we'll call it var equals 5. A variable is a simple container that stores some value or object which we can recall later to do something with. You can name a variable almost anything except it can't start with a number. In this case, we're creating a variable named var and we're assigning the number 5 to it. Just below this, let's type print open parentheses f apostrophe. This variable is open curly brackets type open parentheses var close parentheses close curly brackets, and the value is open curly brackets, var, close curly brackets, apostrophe, close parenthesis. This print statement is what is called an F string since it starts with the letter F. This allows us to print both text as well as include variables and expressions that may change over time. This is done by using those curly brackets. In the first set of curly brackets, we are calling the built-in function type to evaluate what type of variable var is. The second set of curly brackets will simply show the value. If we go ahead and run this, we will see this variable type is an int for integer, and the value is 5. An integer is simply any whole number. Now let's change the value to 5.0. Now if we run the cell again, we will see the variable type is now a float, and the value is 5.0. Python treats any value with a decimal as a float. Now let's change the value to this is a test in parentheses and run the cell. Now we see that the type for this is a str, which is short for string, and the output of this text is this is a test. This is just a simple example to show that a variable doesn't always have to be some numerical value. Let's do one more thing where we set var equals open brackets 1, 2, 3, 4 close brackets and run the cell again. We can see that this type is a list, and the result has several values which is contained in the list. Next, let's add a new cell. Here we will cover some of the basic logic operators. Let's start by typing x equals 12 and y equals 9. Next, we will evaluate the numbers by typing x greater than y and hitting Control Enter. The result should be true since 12 is greater than 9. If we had done y is greater than x, the result would have been false. Now let's change the greater than to less than. You should see the opposite of the result. Now we'll test to see if x is equal to y by typing x equals y. Make sure you use the double equal sign because otherwise you're telling Python to make x equal to y. When we hit Control Enter, we should see this false. Next, if we want to check that x is not equal to y, we simply do x exclamation point equals y. In this case, it should return true. Lastly, let's cover one more basic function, and that is the help function. This is an incredibly useful function in that it will give you information on other functions and how to use them. Let's add a new cell and type help open parentheses print. Below you will see the help documentation for the print function. Great, we have covered some of the bare bones of Python. We have ultimately learned how to use it as a basic calculator. I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please stay tuned to the channel by making sure you like and subscribe the video. Until next time.